Welcome back for the next Respect Talk. The topic today is the green economy, and I've pulled together some dear friends, some new friends, to talk about their businesses and the life that they've committed to sustainability and economy and progress and their commitment to the environment. So I wanted to introduce Peter Glatzer, who's a film producer and the co-founder of SHFT, William Bridge, who is the CEO of Global Green, John Moore, who is the co-founder and creative director for OUTERKNOWN, Heather Muehlman, who is the director of the Peregrine Fund, and Brian Goldstein, who is the creative director for EIN, and Jeff Garner, if he shows up, is a visual artist, and he's the owner and fashion designer of a brand called PROPHETIK. So without further ado, I mean, this is one of those talks where I generally have a lot to say, but today I feel like I have a lot to learn and a lot of listening to do. And I feel like each of you really represents the environment from a very different point of view. John, I'm just curious with you. I mean, what was your North Star in wanting to create OUTERKNOWN, and where are you today with all of that, and how it's progressing? I'm curious.
Really, it was just this idea of smashing the formula. And that formula can relate to wherever you were coming from. So for me, it was 20 years of working in a certain way in the fashion and apparel space. And so myself, my partner, Kelly Slater, and a few others just thought there was a much better way to build clothing. And that was really we didn't know exactly how to do it. None of us had any actual experience building clothes in a sustainable fashion. But we knew if you just asked all the right questions and went to the source and really did it all, didn't rely on subcontractors or others. We did it ourselves. We worked with people that shared our values, that we really could smash the formula. And we took 2.5 years to build our supply chain, essentially had to start over from scratch. We've been selling clothes for 5.5, 6 years. And we haven't compromised at all on those initial values. And we're constantly looking for new ways to smash the formula every day.
Yeah, and smashing the formula, but also creating what you're longing for. When we first met and we started to talk about OUTERKNOWN, there was this story you talked to me about, Kelly wanting what he wanted to wear in the water, and wanting to wear it on his body, but wanting to also make sure that what he's wearing in the water was what he should be wearing. And so, meeting our own personal needs and not being led by consumerism, but really being brave and creating what, we feel is lacking, and having some power that consumers. Peter Glatzer, we've talked a lot about that in regards to you founding SHFT. I mean, I'd love to hear from you what the mission for SHFT was, and how that sort of ties into being the pioneers of building what we need, as opposed to just, being forced into being consumers of, garbage or things that aren't good for us.
Yeah, sure. Much like John just said, I guess I'll back up. I was driving a Prius 12, 13 years ago, recycling and producing movies, and felt like I wanted to do more. It didn't feel like enough. Sometimes I was extremely agitated and wanting to do things about my own feelings around the environment. And sometimes I felt powerless as an individual. And as a filmmaker, I could only tell stories. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not a scientist. And I created a TV show for Discovery around just shifting your lifestyle, shifting the way you think about environmentalism. I wound up partnering with Adrian Grenier, the actor and activist. We wound up building SHFT a year later with a mission to sort of throw a brick through the glass, smashing, as John would say, of environmentalism in the way it used to be thought of. We felt, and this is 10 years ago now, 11 years ago, so it was a different kind of state of affairs, but we wanted to empower consumers to make choices, and to empower individuals to not feel that numbness that I sometimes felt, and that Adrian sometimes felt, but to be creative and to find it in the human spirit, and realize that every little choice we make, every purchase we make, every purchase we don't make, every decision we make really can have an impact, because businesses don't dictate what consumers need to buy or have, or their choices are. Consumers dictate to businesses. So if you are buying organic, or you're buying sustainable, responsibly made products from good companies, those companies pay attention. And that's how, we change things. The economy, the economics of it has to work that way. But consumer behavior can dictate corporate behavior. And that's a big eye opener. So that's what we did. And so Shift, just, you may not know what Shift is, but it was really, it's a media hub for content, for products, and for stories. And now we are putting that towards building sustainable hotels under the same brand. And that's our story, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because William Bridge, the CEO of Global Green, is here, and I know Global Green has given some love to Shift and honored them. And so I'd love to hear from you, Bill, a little bit about Global Green, what you guys are up to, what your mission is. I know we're working on some exciting stuff in regards to a sustainable park to teach cities how to live in a sustainable way. But without further ado, and Brian Goldstein, I know through also Global Green. So we'll get over to you in a second, Brian. But hi, Bill, how are you today?
Thanks, Liz. Hi, we're all familia. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We sure are, and I'm just humbled and honored. We were talking about just some of the amazing people that have been part of the history and the legacy of Global Green for now almost 30 years. We're at the 27 mark, and it's really interesting because in the beginning, I think, with what we were doing in LA, it was really about just kind of waking people up, making people aware, knowing what you didn't know about certain things. I remember the Prius, for example, when we had that at one of our events, and we had some celebrities show up, and that was just that aha moment that people were looking at it and like, what? And everything that Peter is saying is so true. It's about what the consumer sees, understands, and embraces as a way to support the planet. And I think I've just been humbled and honored to be part of a long legacy of people that have been part of this organization that really care and have been able to kind of connect the dots and talk about catalytic programs and projects and making a difference as it relates to saving the planet. The one thing that we're working on right now is the EPA and Global Green have been in a partnership that goes back to around 2012, and we were fortunate enough to work with them and others to develop sustainable neighborhood assessments in 28 cities all over the United States, strictly focusing on underserved communities and how we can support the rebuild of schools, green infrastructure, open green space, transit discussions, and have done these 28 assessments. And what I'd like to see as part of our vision moving forward is, let's go back, because now it's that 2.0 discussion about where do we go as the next phase with these 28 cities. And it's really one of the things we're really focusing on with the organization is looking at the 5 pillars that were structured by President Gorbachev in the beginning, and really focusing on the value change pillar, which is all about social and environmental justice, serving people in underserved communities. And that's really been the crux of where we're trying to drive things over the last year plus. And just really, again, I'm humbled and honored that I can kind of be in an autopilot seat with this organization and just appreciate all the great work that's been done for so many years. So just very grateful.
Thank you, Bill. Tell everybody
Yep.
a little bit about Ojai, and let's go back a little bit to Hurricane Katrina.
Yep.
Sort of loop some of those, or that strand together, where we're at now with Ojai,
Yep.
how we were inspired by
Yep.
what we could change.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the past, and then we'll flip to the today. With Hurricane Katrina, we We came in a little after '05. We got in early '06. And we were working with Brad Pitt and taking a look at the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans, and obviously the most devastated area. And we built a series of sustainable homes and a community center for that neighborhood that really focuses as its own climate action hub for that neighborhood and that community. And we received support all over the world, quite frankly, to help New Orleans. And we're still there doing and fighting the fight. And the purpose of that was to really show that through a really devastating climate related situation, you can build back resilient, you can build back green, you don't have to cheapen it out and just rebuild. And I think that that was part of that education process. And we have a 6,500 square foot LEED Platinum landmark building down there right now that serves as our community center and a dedication to the work that we did there. But we did some work there, and then we've done some work around solar for Sandy. But everything, again, is the underserved communities, education, and helping serve those people. Moving forward, in a very different situation, but done strategically for a reason. We're working within the city of Ojai, as Liz, you know, and what we're looking at putting together there is the first global green community that will have a climate park sitting on the property of Ojai City Hall. There's an 8-acre parcel there. We're in the first phase of development to raise money to start building all the renderings and get the plans in order. The reason that we chose Ojai was because, other than the fact that it's just this incredible, bucolic, amazing space, and they're really walking the walk, but they want to be of service to other communities that don't have quite frankly, the luxury that they do as a city, as a community. So we're going to build this as a temple that will then be duplicated in other underserved communities all over the world, quite frankly, but we're going to target it towards the 28 cities that we're already in the United States, and then move that overseas to align it with the countries we're in. So a lot of exciting work. Very excited. I don't want to talk politics, but very excited about where we are right now politically. And that's opening up a lot of new opportunities. It's been a very interesting 4 years, but we're still here, and we're going to continue to do the good work.
What I like about this conversation is each of you is a pioneer in business, and the green economy is a good economy. Being green is good for business. And I do think that no matter what we believe and no matter what your businesses are, I think what we hope to get across is that we can actually help, we can thrive, and we can be productive in business with these practices. So actually I kind of wanted to turn to Brian. I wanted to talk to everybody a little bit about EIN and another business that I learned a lot about through Global Green and becoming a friend of yours. Tell everybody what EIN is if they are not familiar with it.
Yeah, sure, thanks. So I'm Executive Director of Energy Independence Now. We're the only environmental nonprofit still that I know of in the world that only focuses on hydrogen and the role of renewable hydrogen in the new energy economy. We've been around for about 20 years. We were founded by former Cal EPA Secretary and then Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation CEO Terry Tamminen, absolute environmental warrior, true hero of mine, and I think of most folks in the environmental space. But Terry traveled the world, a little over 20 years ago, trying to find some solutions to the transportation issues that we have in California. The transportation sector is, by far responsible for the majority of our greenhouse gas emissions in California and all over the world. We've got, some of the worst air pollution in the world. I don't know if you guys saw the American Lung Association report. I think 20 out of 21 years or something like that, LA has been ranked, at the top of the list for the worst air pollution. So, Terry was looking at battery electric vehicles and fuel cell electric vehicles, and realized very early on that fuel cell electric vehicles provided the range, the vehicle capacity, and perhaps most importantly, the communal refueling that would be necessary for a transition to zero emission vehicles in California. So what a lot of people don't realize is that most people in California live in multifamily housing, right? So it's only almost 50% or a little over 50% of people here that don't necessarily have a garage or a parking spot or a place where they could throw a charger. So it's now law in the state that will transition to all zero emission vehicles over the next 14 years. And that's just simply not possible with batteries alone. So, sometimes we refer to, hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles as the other electric vehicle, but we're starting to see more and more on the roads in California. And that's really the role that EIN has played. We created the California Hydrogen Highway Initiative for Governor Schwarzenegger back in 03, 04. We co-authored legislation with Union of Concerned Scientists to make sure that there was renewable content in the fuel. Our focus as an environmental NGO in this space is to make sure that all of the fuel is 100% renewable, and that, as we creep toward 100% renewable in the grid, that the renewable mix in hydrogen always meets or beats the grid mix here. But something interesting that's happened over the years is we've seen the role of renewable hydrogen transcend much further past transportation into renewable energy storage, industrial decarbonization, and disaster resilience. But I'd say the most straightforward example of that in California is, again, it's law that will go to 100% renewable electricity here. You've got to imagine a town the size of Los Angeles or the Bay Area, what the requirement for electricity and renewable electricity would be, in Los Angeles alone. And then if we're using wind and solar, which are both intermittent, how are we going to store enough of that electricity to keep tens of millions of households going overnight, to keep industry and the city itself lit up overnight? And that's going to require massive amounts of energy storage. So we've really done a lot of analysis in that regard, and there's just not enough lithium or cobalt on the planet to do this at a global scale. So it will absolutely require renewable hydrogen for us to, essentially take all of this excess wind and solar to, electrolyze water, split it into hydrogen and oxygen, and then to store that either, in our old gas grid network, to use stationary power production to be able to return energy to the grid, or to send it down into the transportation sector to power, zero emission vehicles. So I'm really excited about the prospect for this, long time overlooked technology and energy carrier, but it seems to really be having its moment now. So it's nice to see, 20 years worth of work starting to pay off, and it's just a really exciting time to be in this space.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear exactly what each of your businesses is, because I think most people, we are still at that, we're still ironically at a cusp of great change, great opportunity, and great progress. But you all were really pioneers, and it must feel good. And then without getting into politics, to see this wave is beginning to come your way. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more personally with you guys about your backgrounds and what your North Star is and who your hero is and what inspires you every day to continue fighting the good fight, even when it seems impossible. But for those that don't know about all of your businesses, I want to just keep going. Heather Muehlman, Brian was talking about the air. So let's talk about the birds. Without taking care of the environment, we cannot take care of our wildlife. So I wanted you to be here today to share with us your work. I know you're not saving every animal on the planet, but you are saving the apex predators, and they're an important part of our ecosystem. So I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about the Peregrine Fund.
Thanks so much, Liz. Yeah, my name's Heather Muehlman, and I work for the birds. I work for the Peregrine Fund. We're a 51-year-old organization, started at Cornell University in 1970. And it was started because a group of conservationists and falconers, and for those of you who aren't familiar with falconry, that's the sport of hunting with a bird. They're the fastest animal on the planet, the peregrine falcon. They only found 39 pairs left in North America. They didn't know why. And so there were a group of falconers that didn't want to see their falconry bird go extinct, went out on a mission to figure out what was going on. And they did it through science. And through science, they figured out that DDT was the culprit, and this began a great tradition of the Peregrine Fund working in partnership and collaboration with other organizations to solve problems. So in the case of the Peregrine falcon, our leading team from the beginning, our founders, they came together. They discovered how we could captively breed peregrines, captively at scale. And as a result, over a 30-year period, we raised and released over 4,000 peregrines all across North America. They're generalists. So a cliff to them could be, you know, at Yosemite National Park, or it could be in New York City. And actually the most number per capita of peregrine falcons in the United States do live in New York City. They came off the endangered species list in 1999, thus began an opportunity to grow that scope to a global scale. So today we work on behalf of all 559 raptor species around the world across 6 continents. We'd be on 7 if Antarctica had raptors. And it is really an organization that I feel like I've heard this mentioned several times. You're standing in the footsteps of giants. The Peregrine Fund started the same year that Earth Day began, also in 1970, when there was this huge shift in how we started to think about environmentalism in our own lives. And in many respects, there was thought leadership that came out of our organization and all of our collaborators that helped to push this message and really help to be where we are today. And yes, apex predators, for those of you who don't know, apex predators are indicator species, and indicator species are a really great thing to study and research in an environment because they are an indicator of the health of all of the things below them on the food chain. So you have folks that study sharks and lions and elephants. We study raptors. We have a network of the most highly skilled raptor biologists working in some of the most remote places around the world to understand the health of ecosystems and work together to find solutions that promote coexistence for people and for wildlife.
But also, we've talked a lot about, and as much as I think, the work that you're doing is so important. I want to drive this a little bit back towards the green economy and just talk about what you've been able to accomplish when it comes to ecotourism, because each and every one of you is actually making money and making a difference, not only in the causes that you believe in or the companies that you run, but you're creating jobs, you're creating opportunities, for other people in these better practices. So talk a little bit about the the island that you were sharing with me about yesterday in the Dominican Republic. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. In the Dominican Republic. So there's this beautiful hawk called the Ridgway's hawk. We got involved in this project in the 1990, and there were about 250 to 350 hawks left on the island just in one population. They brought them to another population in Punta Cana, where there's obviously resorts and lots of people, and people are coming to Punta Cana and Dominican Republic because it's such a beautiful natural place. And we worked hand in hand with resort community and communities there, as well as local people to help preserve those areas and celebrate the hawk. So it's as much educational and community-based as it is an incentive for the business community to work hand in hand with us. Actually, in Punta Cana, we were approached by resorts because the value of the Ridgway's hawk and everything that falls below it on that food chain was critical to their business model.
Well, I see Jeff Garner made it Jeff Garner, are you in Scotland right now? Like, are you on a bluff in Scotland right now? Is that what I see behind you?
No, I'm in Malibu. So sorry,
Oh.
I'm at my house. So apologize for the delay.
You are one of the most inspiring people I know, especially when it comes to this topic. I mean, I would love for you to jump in. We have not,
Sure.
half an hour left, but to tell everybody about why, how you do it, and how you keep teaching people how to do it, what you're doing with your fashion company, Prophetik.
Sure. Definitely feel like an old timer, like back in my day. So I started in sustainable fashion 18 years ago. I used to design for a lot of bands out of Nashville, Tennessee, grew up on a horse farm and got into the production element, realized how dark and dirty it was. And as a scientific, background, my grandfather was a scientist in the Manhattan Project in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I simply used that kind of skill set to figure out different solutions and started plant-based dyes and started working with textilers to develop, using hemp. And so obviously today is a different day, but, the elements I started just in discoveries was, everyone was talking about more or less manufacturing and fair labor. And, I was looking at seeing the runoff from the dyes and how that affected the ecosystem. We'd go to the Pearl River in China, for example. So it just led to more discoveries. We did a doc on it that won an Emmy a couple years ago. And then I personally, had been affected. My mom died of breast cancer last year. And so I was learning about nylon, that horrible fabric that was created in the, after the war that basically replaced silk for the parachutes. And I was like, well, nobody's actually taken the time and energy to discover what that does to the human body, which, quite honestly, we're all designed to be naked and never have clothes on us. So what is the skin mechanism that, takes in everything into our bloodstream? What happens when we put this stuff on our bodies and UV rays hit, sun hits us, and then off gases, etc. So it really shocked me, being a Tennessee farm boy, that nobody had even spoken about this. And then you look and, I kind of live off the grid and I never watch news, etc. But, I realized very quickly, like, this wasn't a conversation. And then you learn about things in which 600 women sued Victoria's Secrets for breast cancer. And you heard about the Delta Airlines saying Zach Posen was sued for these, 2 flight attendants in California who broke out in rashes. So you got to really start dissecting and say, okay, well, what's the science behind this? Obviously, polyester is non-breathable. It's synthetically dyed. It's got formaldehyde in it, heavy metals, and that's going to have an effect to our bodies. So, it's an interesting field because obviously I do fashion and I dress fun people and do red carpet stuff and do catwalks around the world. And that's the beauty as an artist. But as an artist, I'm not, I don't work for a company. I'm an artist of my own nature. And quite honestly, I don't know why I'm on this panel, but you guys are amazing.
Well, I think you're on, you so perfectly are, because the thought is, before you guys started doing what you were doing, it wasn't being done, and we're talking about the future and
Sure.
where we're going from here, and actually, without getting political at all, I would love to know from each of you how you hope to see the green economy evolve. Now that we understand what each of you does and what your background is, it would be nice to hear your vision, your dream of how you'd like to see the green economy evolve right now, because we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. Anybody can jump in. You guys feel free to talk to each other too. This is a respectful talk.
Well, I'll interject one thing. Brian, I really like your blanket shirt.
Oh, thanks a lot.
I have several of those.
You look great, man. So thank you for wearing that. I think I'll just speak to the evolution specifically from our space. It's one thing to wrap your head around sustainability and doing things in a more responsible way. And, now we're like pivoting all the way to committing to full circularity. And we want to do that by 2030. And so, our hope is that everyone's starting to think this way. And, that's designing out 100% of all waste and emissions from everything we make using materials that already exist. So it's great to use organic materials. That's much better than conventional. It's even better to use recycled materials that already existed. So, you know, that's our goal. And then also to address the end of life cycle. So when you're done wearing something, or, you know, clothing will inevitably fall apart at some point, even the best made clothes in the world. So are we repairing them? Are we reselling them? But keeping them out of landfills. And so, you know, I think that's specific to our space and what we think about every day. It's that evolution from pioneering sustainability to pioneering circularity.
Yeah, I agree. Peter, I see you wanting to jump in.
Yeah, I just have two thoughts about the future, I guess. One from the perspective of the space that we're in, which is now we're turning our focus at SHFT towards sustainable design and real estate. We're working on 2 hotels, one is in a city, in the city of Indio in California. And one of the beautiful things about being able to, that project is we're building it from the ground up, and it's this opportunity to create a net zero city 20 years, actually 40 years, I think, before AB 100 kicks in 2045. And all the developer partners around us and our financial partners for the most
Uh-oh. Peter froze.
Oops, am I there?
You're there.
Am I there? Okay. When big business, and we saw this with SHFT in our media space, when we worked with large companies like Virgin and AOL and Ford Motor Company, you see these behemoth global companies moving in this direction of sustainability. That's when you start to get excited about the future, because it's got to happen. That sustainable imperative in business will drive us into the next, you know, sort of iteration of how we do things. And then the other thing I want to say, the other thought about your question is that, without getting too political, we've always felt that, and I'm sure everyone on this panel feels that to really solve this problem, it takes a cooperation between public and private sectors. And you know, you can't build a wind farm without some support, without some incentives from the government. It doesn't pencil out. You can't build a city without some support from government, you know, or it doesn't work. And to do a lot of these sustainable things, you just need that support. And I do think we're starting to see in this administration a return to sensibility, a return to science, and a return and a building upon what was just barely started before this last administration. To see John Kerry's position created is huge, and to see that public-private partnership that is so essential for this change to happen on the level that we need to see it happening, which we're not even close to. At least that foundation is there, and I think that cooperation between public and private is now finally at least on the map. You know, we can see it. That's it.
Yeah, I think. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, you know, along those lines for us, it's really moving into that, even more so into that collaborative space. We're starting to work with large scale energy to, you know, let's take wind farms, for example. We've been working with this amazing company called INT'L. INT'L has a camera that can identify if an eagle or a hawk, just by its shape, is coming towards a turbine. When that happens, it automatically shuts that one turbine down. So it's not shutting an entire farm down. It's also not, it's also allowing that raptor to live. So there are tons of solutions out there to be able to work together and collaborate. And I think, you know, that's something that we're really putting a lot of emphasis on right now, is what do those large scale partnerships look like for electricity, for wind, for alternative energy, where we can help with our level of expertise in partnership with theirs.
What do you feel, Jeff, in regards to the current green economy? What is exciting to you, and how do you hope to see it evolve in the not too distant future?
Sure. Alongside of that, I hope that policies will be put in effect that people, just consumers, will have an educated choice. So they'll know if they wear this polyester, for example, that they understand what ingredients, what chemicals are in it that could possibly affect them. So just like you see in, food, etc. So I think those ingredients and those policies will help. So in my world, it's not just about awareness, it's about addiction. So everyone's addicted to cheap price points, etc. They're not, without understanding what this is made of and how it could potentially affect their health. So, it's hoping to move people away from the unnatural fabrications into back to the natural fabrications and understanding that. And also in that case will help more companies to go that direction, because we definitely don't need any more plastic in this world. So polyester should not continue to be created. And so it is great to recycle it, etc., but that's not the ultimate solution. So that is the idea, that more and more people will start wearing it, price points will come down, more farmers will grow hemp, etc., etc. So yeah.
That's one of the things I love about SHFT, is that it really is a platform in which we can educate ourselves and become more informed as consumers. And so you should be checking out SHFT and what Peter's doing. And John and Jeff, you guys need to be collaborating some way. Will you tell everybody about Wolf and Rose just briefly, and then let's move on to Brian and to Bill and your hopes for the future of the green economy?
Sure. So Wolf and Rose, I started it last year, and it's an intimates collection I developed that, I make boxers out of hemp, and basically I do couture design. And so I saw a need for my buddies, dealing with prostate cancer, my mom with breast cancer. So I created a solution. So it's all hemp. I made the waistband out of organic cotton, with natural rubber, and my dad's in the rubber business. So anyway, so I created this solution. So the idea is that people can touch, feel, understand the difference, and you don't have to wash it and wear them like 10 times in a row. It's great.
Brian, in light of the future of the green economy, if you had the power to make one change, global change, what would it be?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty heavy question, I guess, a lot to unpack, but I'd say, in a nutshell, and I think this really ties into the work that everyone on this panel is doing, and certainly the direction that I'd like to see, the evolution of the green economy or the new energy economy is, let's make it cool. Let's make it graceful and elegant, right? We don't have to slap things together with popsicle sticks and duct tape, right? We can kind of give people what they want, whether it's in fashion or vehicles or construction or whatever it might be, but really, think through solutions to make it more efficient, more sustainable, more environmentally friendly. I think from the transportation sector, for the longest time, we all thought about, alternative fuel vehicles as these kind of space age looking, very ugly, weird cars that, only hippies drove around or whatever it may be. But in reality, there's no reason that needs to be the future of automotive. It doesn't need to be the future of fashion or any other aspect of sustainability right now. And so that's one of the things that really gets me most excited about, the work we're doing around fuel cell vehicles and beyond transportation into energy storage and disaster resilience, industrial decarbonization. It's that, look, if people need to drive pickup trucks, if they want to drive pickup trucks, or if they want to wear wetsuits or whatever it may be, we can put together sustainable, very cool, elegant solutions that still fit everyone's needs, but do it just, A, with a little bit of style, but B, also in a very efficient fashion. So, when I envision the future of sustainability and the future of the new energy economy, I don't just picture like getting the job done, but I picture getting it done in a pretty cool way. And I think everyone on this panel really kind of ties that together in their own industries or their own work. And it's just really exciting to hear about, all these different perspectives of how to approach industries that I haven't really been thinking about as much.
And protecting the environment and also our wildlife, is so essential. And I'm going to surprise you guys at the end, because we're going to have some visitors come on before you all get back to your normal business day. So thanks for doing this again at 2 p.m. But Bill, what inspires you in this leadership role that you have with Global Green, and what has inspired you to take that position, and where do you want to go with it? Your mic is on. Your mic, yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, guys. I wanted to be rude and jump in after Jeff because I was so inspired and moved by that. And I think that if I could cast a perfect world and our organization could help create the interruption to make this happen, it would be creating a toolkit for everyone, not just those that can live a sustainable life all the way around, but those that don't even know what that means, and be able to put something together where we're all working for the planet and supporting those that know how to do it, those that don't have any idea what we're even talking about. And there is a big is what it is gap there that needs to be filled. And God, if we could do that through technological design or an app or something along the line where everyone could educate themselves and the key is to have affordable access to a sustainable lifestyle, whether it's transit, clothing, food, shelter, recreation. That would be amazing. Amazing.
And to know and to inspire people to know that if they can shift their companies, that they can also prosper, and the green economy is just good business. You know,
Absolutely.
not that you're gonna, you know, make less money. You can continue to be advantageous for you and your employees.
Absolutely. And that's a lot where policy and advocacy to create that and affect change has to come in. And but my God, I mean, I've tracked where we were, you know, 27 years ago and to where we are as a society now. And we've made, you know, we still have so far to go, but we've made incredible leaps and bounds. I mean, you think about the years of the tree hugger and people were just like, oh God, please. I mean, we've come so far.
I just want to say, can I jump in? One thing that William just said really resonates with me, which is the idea that environmentalism can't stay sort of in its own category in and of itself. There's an interconnectedness that has to be sort of accepted before you can even get into any of these conversations. And I think everybody on this panel understands that. And, you know, it's what Jeff was talking about. I mean, nothing's siloed, you know, if you don't, just like nature is interconnected, so is the solution to this problem. So is the working together and, you know, just joining forces to tackle these things, because it has to be accessible to everyone. It has to be achievable to everyone. Everyone has to feel like they're a part of the solution. And it's too easy to not feel that way. I think most people don't really understand that they can play a part. And that's a big part of what we're trying to get across. And I think for everybody on this panel, it's a big part of it. And another thing Brian had said, just making it cool. That's something we've been trying to do at SHFT from the very, very beginning, using media, music, film, art, design, architecture to say, hey, first, this is a cool lifestyle. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's just, you know, this is attractive, or this is functional, or this is well made. And the secondary story is the sustainable story, because people don't want to hear green, 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 green. It shouldn't be a movement. It should, you know, that's the new environmentalism. It's just folded into the fabric of the way we live. And that's where businesses start to, you know, prosper, and green jobs are created, and our foreign policy is affected. So that interconnectedness is key.
Peter, I want to close out on that again. So much inspiration. And, you know, we're at a point in time, it goes back to that tree hugger mentality, where if you were talking about the environment 20 years ago, whatever, people are like, whoa, go have your granola and have a nice day. We're so blessed, and especially us on this panel as advocates, as, you know, eco warriors for this planet, we need to be of service, because we're at a point now where there are people that maybe, you know, don't understand what's going on, and it's that is what it is theory, and you need to educate them. But I think that those barriers have really come down, you know, very recently, you know, 10-ish years. And it's just an incredible opportunity because you couldn't get past those. And I know that was a lot of what Global Green was trying to do years ago. And you know, as Brian had said, with the cool factor and the Prius, and you know, is to drop those barriers. And that's a gift that I think we all share right now, is that those walls are they're pretty much down.
But it's interesting you say that, because generally speaking, the Respect Project, although topical, really does get into the spirit of human beings and your own personal strength and what inspires you and your background. You're talking about, you know, in the last 10 years, the barriers went down, but you all started, you know, 20 years ago, let's say. So just to end, I'm just curious, you know, what as pioneers in this field, and I'm sure spiritually, emotionally, in every aspect of your life, you've also tapped into that. I mean, what has been that North Star for each of you, to go where others fear to tread, you know, to do the thing that's brave or right when others aren't doing it? John. You're muted. Yeah.
Sorry. I think, you know, my children are my North Star, because you know, you can't, it's selfish to think any other way. And so, you know, this is an opportunity. I haven't done it as long as all of you guys have. And listening to your stories, I mean, they're all so inspiring. And, you know, this is still relatively new for us, but it's the only way forward. And so, you know, I think looking them in the eyes every day and realizing kind of what they're inheriting, you know, we have to change our ways. And, you know, just one last thought, because you guys all just said it. I mean, you shouldn't have to sacrifice style for sustainability. And, you know, if we can truly together, all of us, make this, demystify all of the complexities and make this cool and just what we all want to aspire to, I think that's the way to break through. I totally agree. It needs to be more accessible too, 100%. I mean, I have no idea what Jeff's prices are. I know what our prices are. We are, you know, we're probably somewhere in the middle, but we're still too expensive. So, you know, like when you look at the kids, we have to broaden our horizons. We have to make this more accessible, more cool, more a part of our daily fabric and cultural fabric. So that's what drives me.
That's what I really love about this project in Ojai, Bill, you know, because even though Ojai is a privileged community, the fact that we're able to build the sustainable park to inspire cities worldwide on how to be green, you know, I think it's that those are, you know, the answer to that question for me, although I oftentimes don't actually speak about myself, I would just say we're flawed human beings, but we just have to always simplify things by just doing the next right thing. And we're only as capable as we were in that given moment, you know, and information is power. Knowledge is power. I had so much I wanted to just absorb from each of you, but even just creating this conversation and creating the content, you know, I hope we can all share it with others. To Peter's point, we're all interconnected and each of these businesses is different. I didn't know that much about each of your businesses. And so that's the kind of information we want to get out to people so that we can keep doing the next right thing. Brian, any thoughts on how you've been inspired and a pioneer in your field? Because you're still a pioneer in a field that most people don't know that much about.
Yeah, we're just getting started, and it's exhausting to think about that after, you know, 15 to 20 years that we're just now like experiencing the spotlight and you know, the industry and movements really just now starting to take off. But I think you summed it up really well with just do the right thing, right? And you know, I grew up spending a ton of time outdoors. Done a lot of outdoor adventure. I lived in Colorado for years and snowboarded every day. I've traveled around the world just for various sorts of outdoor activity. And I think that's always been inspiring to me to kind of, you know, remind myself of why I'm doing this. And then to kind of understand this balance and respect that nature teaches us. And I think that's been in a lot of ways, you know, my North Star. And I think, you know, kind of coming back to this idea of accomplishing what we need to accomplish just with a little bit of style, doing it, you know, not necessarily just in a cool way, but in a, like a really creative and smart way, you know? So I think that there's just this challenge that lies in that. There's a challenge that lies in achieving kind of this harmony that we're all looking for, you know, between business and policy and nature. But just doing that and with the utmost like grace and elegance has always been kind of the biggest thing that's challenged me. And one of the things that's really, you know, drawn me to this particular space. And I think that, you know, I mentioned we do a lot of work outside of transportation, but in automotive, you know, that's a big enough example, right? We've been doing things the same way for not that long, maybe about 100 years, but we just burn things in controlled explosions to make our vehicles go. And it's incredibly inefficient. Like the vehicles that, you know, are most gasoline and diesel vehicles are like 30% efficient. And then when you kind of look at the overall well-to-wheel efficiency of, you know, pulling oil out of the ground in one place, shipping it somewhere else to be refined, you know, creating a distribution network to fuel cars, and then just to like burn this crap in our cars and just spew out this exhaust that, you know, most people don't even really care about what's in it, what it's doing, what, you know, what the problem is. So to be able to come up with, you know, concepts to, you know, still kind of allow people the mobility that they need to kind of give people choices in vehicles and modes of transportation, and whether it's consumers or businesses. You know, look at the ports in LA alone. We have 17,000 heavy duty trucks at the twin ports in LA. That's not going to be a very easy task to electrify 17,000 trucks. It wouldn't be easy to pull even half of those offline at once to charge them. Could you imagine the parking lot you would need to charge, you know, 8,500 trucks? You'd have to pull them offline for 8 to 12 hours. It's just a kind of a really clunky solution. When I look at, you know, what we're doing with hydrogen right now, the concept of really being able to provide 400 to 600 miles range, for the trucks to be completely silent, for them not to pollute, and all the fence line communities that border the port that suffer the most from all the crap that we're all buying on Amazon and from Walmart or wherever. And those companies have great sustainability initiatives. I'm not picking on them, but they sell a lot of stuff, and I'll, you know, click buy on Amazon without really, you know, paying too much attention to where all this stuff is coming from, what's the footprint, and who's actually getting hurt out of that. And so when you start to think through that, and you think of like, you know, just some creative ways to improve that process and to make it more efficient and, you know, cool, not necessarily from a stylistic standpoint, but from just like looking at it, looking at the way that it works and imagining that, hey, you know, we could ship stuff on complete zero emission freight ships, right? Not only would they be zero emission, not pollute the water, not pollute the air, but they're also silent. They're not going to disturb marine life with crazy noises from diesel engines. You know, we can get stuff all around the world wherever we need, and then pick it back up with you know, land-based transportation that's still zero emission. And the stuff we're working on, you know, beyond the fact that it's zero emission, it produces pure water as the only byproduct. It just doesn't get much cooler than that. And I think that's really the driving force, is to kind of, you know, come back to these goals that I have for nature and you know, the respect that I hope we can all share for society and the planet around us. And then to like really come up with just some creative, fun, and just cool ways to deal with that. And I think that's enough of a challenge to keep me going for my lifetime. Yeah. I can kind of see the same thing that drive the other panelists here as well.
Well, speaking of nature, I thought we'd do a teeny bit of show and tell before we reach the 3 o'clock hour. So quickly, very quickly, Heather, could we bring out Oliver and Star? And Oliver's the oldest African owl. Oh my God. And
Tate surprised us with a kestrel. This is
me okay?
Yeah. This is Tate Mason. He's the director of the World Center for Birds of Prey, our education center in Boise, Idaho. And take it away. Tate, who are we looking at?
Thanks so much, Heather. It's been great listening to this conversation. And again, my name is Tate Mason, director of the World Center for Birds of Prey. I came up as a research biologist. I studied raptors and other songbirds for about 15 years. And I became so enraptured, if you will, with preventing the extinction of birds of prey, that when I had the opportunity to work at the World Center for Birds of Prey, that was an ideal place for me. And we are able to connect kids in particular, but people from all walks of life, with some of the most fascinating birds on planet Earth. And this one here is an American kestrel. American kestrels are the most common falcon in North America. They're also found in South America. But over the last 50 years, we've lost half of the population of kestrels. That doesn't make Bob very, very comfortable, really. And so we're getting out in front of that with the American Kestrel Partnership, determining why kestrels are in decline. Out west, this is what we'll see these birds up on utility poles, and this bird is named Bob. And you see their tails bobbing up and down like this sometimes. And if you see that on the pole, then that's, or on the utility line or something like that, you'll know that's an American kestrel. Now, I also want to introduce you to another raptor, and this one is Oliver, and Oliver is a Verreaux's eagle owl, also known as a milky eagle owl. This is the largest owl on the continent of Africa. Now, these birds will be found, think about your typical Lion King habitat. So we're talking about wide acacia trees, and you have a giraffe that's up there and he's just chewing on the acacia leaves. And right up in that tree is a milky eagle owl, scanning with its ears, scanning with its eyes, listening for hedgehogs and listening for warthog piglets and any type of bird that it could capture. Aaron, can we see this bird's talons? The bird's talons are absolutely out of control. Yeah, I think you got them there. And so with those 2 toes forward and 2 toes back, these are nature's rat trap. And of course, rodents control, or they have all sorts of diseases that they carry, from hantavirus and leishmaniasis. And owls are nature's control system for diseases that plague mammals. Oftentimes those diseases do not affect birds. And so owls and falcons that we've just shown you, the kestrel is a small falcon, are just essential for balance out in the environment. So we have these birds at the World Center for Birds of Prey. We've got 5,000 kids that come through on field trips each year, and we are able to talk about science and what scientists do in order to preserve the environment. And we are able to help kids see themselves as scientists, see themselves like Aaron here holding a Verreaux's eagle owl. Like, maybe I'll be able to do that someday. And then we have a high school program called Raptor High. And we've got a whole bunch of applicants for kids to spend the summer with us, where they get up close with these birds. They learn all the stories, not only of these individuals, but of the species, of the 586 species of raptors around the world that are indicators of the health of our planet.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sending my daughter to you for the summer. You guys, I want to be respectful of your time. I asked you to come and spend an hour with me. Thank you. I care so much about each of you and just inspired by each of you. So thanks for giving me some time today. And, you know, keep calm and carry on, and see you all very soon. Thank you so much for your time and for being a part of the Respect Project.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.